Horrific Network Entertainment. Well, we are back on another Moderating with Moderators. And today's show is a special one because this one is a panel when we came back from the pandemic. And we all had felt what it was like to not be able to do this in person. And I know it stung all of us pretty significantly. And with me to talk about it is the man who moderated it, Mr. Charlie Williams. How you doing today, Charlie?
Good, Jim. Good to see you guys.
And along with us is our partner in crime, or at least the person who would bail us out if we ever got there. But in truth be told, she'd be driving the car in hopes of getting us away. Ashlei, one half of Higby Horror Haunts. How you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Good.
Doing good. We also got a shout out. He won't be here for the next couple episodes, but if you are at Sinister Creature Con, you definitely will run into our fourth moderator, Jaye. He is the fourth component of what is this foursome that is over the last 8.5 years has become really the strongest team of moderators that I have seen. I always go to Comic-Cons and either someone has a stack of notes or not enough notes or whatever, but their delivery is always dry. I guarantee you that does not happen at Sinister Creature Con. And this year, the guests that we are interviewing are not going to make those panels dry at all either. I'm talking Devin Sawa. I'm talking CJ Graham. I'm talking Felissa Rose. The list just goes on and on and on. You will not want to miss the amount of moments that happened at Sinister. So with that, Charlie, let's go to 2021. Like I said, we had hosted at this point 2 or 3 virtual events that got us through the pandemic. But to be back in a venue, this was a huge venue. The one time that we were in a really huge venue. But to be back in a venue live, it was a one-day event. But because it was a one-day event, it forced us to come up with these combinations that maybe in normal circumstances would be multiple panels. And instead, you got the opportunity to do a panel with Predator, Leatherface, and Michael Myers all in one fell swoop. Probably one of the dopest conversations. And I had mentioned before on other show that stay tuned because something very similar is cooking for Sinister 2024. But let's get into this thing with these
pandemic world
3 guys.
Where everybody's been covering their faces with
Charlie,
masks.
what did it mean? I'll ask you
It's
right
kind
off
of
the
nice
get-go.
to be able
What did
to
it
take
mean
a
to
peek
you
behind 3 of the most famous
be able to get back
masks
and
in
do
the
this
history
live?
of horror and science fiction.
It was
So
really,
each of these 3 men
it was
has
great,
a unique
Jim.
story
And the venue was
to tell
unique
about how they came to
because
wear
you
these
could
iconic
see everything
masks.
from
And
the
it's my
vantage
pleasure
point.
to
I
introduce
mean, the
them to you
panel
right now.
room was there.
Let's give a warm
Panel
Sinister
area
Creature
was there. The
reception
celebrity
to
tables were
first
in front
Don
of it.
Shanks from
All the
Halloween
vendors
5.
were over to the left of where I was, right there. And
Next, we're
it
going
was
to
such an
welcome
open
Bob
environment,
Elmore
you know.
from Texas Chainsaw
It was like everything
Massacre
came
2.
together at once. But it was a neat experience. Yeah, it was great to actually be there.
And last but not least,
For me,
you'll
this venue
realize that
felt like
you
it was
see
like
he's
the
6'10"
Super Bowl.
and he walks out on
Like,
stage.
because it was so big and so open, and you just felt like you had to project even more across this massive building. It really felt like it was such a big event.
Guys, first of all, I want to say how
There
great it is to have
is
you
no
here.
question in my mind out
This
of the
really
three of
marks
these
our return
guys
to live
who
panels for Sinister
horrific
CreatureCon, and I can't
network
think of a
members
better group
Xander
to
was
start
most
off
excited to see.
and welcome everybody back
But
with.
Charlie, was there
Let's
one
get
of these
started
three
with,
that you were like, damn,
three
I get to
scenarios
interview?
that led you guys to your
Like-
roles in your
Well, I think
signature
John
films.
Shanks,
And I'm going to
because of,
say 3 words.
Michael
and
Myers'
each one of these words has something to do with
performance,
each one of
and
you.
I was one of those
And then we'll
few
let you
people
fill
that
in the
went to see
details.
Halloween 5 when it
The
premiered
first word is parkour.
on Halloween.
That's me.
The
Well,
next
not
word is
Halloween. It
chainsaw,
actually premiered on
and being
Friday
able
the
to lift a
13th,
chainsaw. And the last one is humanizing.
October, Friday the
And that's
13th.
humanizing one of the most inhumane of
The year it
villains.
came out, which was what, Jim?
So it's not hard,
You
like I
remember
said
what
before,
year
to
Halloween
figure out how
5
these
came
match
out?
up with our
came out?
guests
I mean, I
today.
can find out for you.
But I'm
Hold
going
on.
to let each one of them share
Was it
their
like
story with you. So,
90
Dawn, we'll
or
start with
something
you.
like
How did you
that?
find your way
89 or
behind the
90?
mask?
Well,
1989.
in my
1989,
early
okay.
days, I did a lot of theater.
And it was in response
Different
because,
things.
they
So I
had brought
learned
back
how to
Halloween 4
deal
and
with
it
the
had
mask.
done
We
really
did some
well, and so
Commedia
they
dell'arte.
whipped out
And
Halloween
so
5 really
putting the
fast.
mask on, you just, as soon as you put it on,
But
you
I
become
remember
that
sitting
character.
in the theater, and I was the oldest
Or at least
person
it
in
was
the
for me.
theater.
How did you
And
get the role?
I was in there with a bunch of
Okay,
junior
I
high
got the
kids, and
role.
they were all throwing
Don
M&Ms
Pike
at the
was
back
the
of my
stunt
head.
coordinator on the show.
So
and I had known him from working on chips.
that was
and
my
different things.
experience watching
And a
Halloween
picture we did
5.
in Atlanta.
But
And he called me.
Did
and
you
he
turn
said,
around and
"Are you
tell him to
available
shut the
do
hell up?
stunts?"
I did, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I did. Which
Okay. And he called back.
great
He said,
did not
"The
greatly
director would
improve
like
the
to meet
situation.
with you." I go, "For doing stunts? I mean, usually you're just hired,
That's
you come in,
funny.
you fall
You
on the
just
ground."
asked Don what it was
No,
like
we're
to be
thinking about
Michael
using you
Myers
for
at that
Michael
point
Myers.
in the franchise.
Oh, that's cool.
And he
So I
said
walked in, I was talking with
the
Dominique,
second that he turned or he
and
put
we
the
talked over a
mask
couple of
on,
things, and he says,
he
"Okay,
became Michael Myers.
I want to
Yeah.
see how you can do this."
It's
right?
interesting to
He says,
hear
"I
him.
want you to
It's
walk
interesting
like
to hear
wood
him
through water."
say that.
So I thought about
And you
it
can
for a
go
minute,
back
I go,
and watch
"Okay."
a
I
few
got up and I
episodes
did it. He
ago
goes,
our
"Okay,
CJ
perfect.
Graham
You got it."
panel,
That was
and
Right.
he said something similar. Like,
probably the easiest part I
Exactly.
ever got.
it's interesting.
Don't drop my
Vers-
cup.
Did you have anything
versus
to do
Nick
with
Castle
the actual design of the
or
mask?
Steve Dash.
or-
Well, the
Like
great
the
thing
first
to tell
guys to
from
do
KMB,
it versus these
because,
guys coming
you know,
in later on in
all
the franchise.
zombies,
It
you know,
was
the living dead.
sounds like
you know,
it was all just go.
part of it was his face and part
Yeah.
of it was mine.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of, because I got kind of a big head, so they had to make it a little larger. And then I had to have a little insert put in when I got my nose
Charlie,
busted.
this may be the panel where you tell Xander to put his
I
hand
think
down.
that's the story we're going to get
think
to
it
in a
is.
few
Later.
minutes. Okay, Bob, now,
I remember
Really
the
interesting
cosplay
story
contest at this venue
if anybody who's
and
a
how
fan of
bananas it was.
knows that Bill Johnson is the credit
I-
Oh, really?
that was-
Oh, that's right.
for the role of
Was it-
Leatherface.
I looked at
But-
Ron
From what I understand,
in the heat of that moment
at least
and knew that
90% of what
Ron
we
was
see
not
on the
going to be the
screen
guy that
is
like
Bob Elmore.
held
That's
those
right.
people back.
So, and I
Like,
just
that was
cracked up when I
insane.
read the first time the reason why you
Like
ended up with the
standing
role.
room
I'll let you
only,
go ahead
people
and tell.
pressing up against that wall.
I'm a stuntman.
That was
That's all
insane.
I've ever done. I'm not an actor. And,
I just
as a
remember you
stuntman,
calling us all
I was
over.
hired to do,
You know, it was all hands on deck.
Double an actor who was 6'2".
Yeah, that
280
situation
pounds.
just came out of nowhere. Like it,
Yeah, it was kind of
Good friend
chaotic.
of mine, Dan
Yeah.
It went
Archer, was
from
he was going to double Bill
the
Moseley.
room was, you know,
Jimmy
85%
Stifford doubled
full.
Dennis Hopper,
to
and
standing
Beth Buford
room
doubled
only,
Caroline Williams. So
to
we, as a
people
group,
like
went to Texas.
wanting
And
in.
I never heard of Texas
in a
Chainsaw
matter
before,
of,
but I rented
I would say,
the original one and watched it and was like blown
5
away by all of
minutes.
it. So I said, well, this is going to be
and
great.
yeah, I texted
Well,
everybody.
two
I was
turned
like,
out to be a
dude, we
little
got a
different than
human.
one.
We all got to
And,
link arms and human
I went-
wallet because this is
We
insane
did the
right
bridge
now.
scene first.
Yeah.
Right.
Had
We
to
were
go
all
twice.
scrambling.
I broke my wrist. and
Yeah, we
worked
were.
the show with a broken wrist.
Well, it didn't
This
help
is
that there was like 3
but-
access points for them to all come
did a
in, and we
scene
had to
where you
block
jump out of
off
the
all
tube
3
and
because the
I
2
stood
sides and then
Caroline
that
Williams,
opening between the
stretch
two curtains.
and start chasing her down a tunnel. Well, I'm
Yeah.
done. I
The
go out.
I
get
think a
call
lot
back
of
and
that
say, "Bob, you
came
need to
with
come
that
back
this
to
was
set."
the first
I go,
time
"Oh,
since the
what do I do
pandemic that
now?"
we had been back.
Uh,
Well, everyone was itching to get out because it was right, like, pandemic, everything opened and we were open. Like, this event happened so fast
Yeah.
I go, well,
that I don't think any of us expected any of that to happen, and for the turnout to be as crazy as it was.
You really don't.
Yeah.
And
Right.
they hired Bill Johnson because he had really buggy eyes, so you could see his eyes.
Now, one thing I
Behind
never
it.
understood was that this was going to be the
he
new
couldn't do that.
venue,
He
right?
got sick. He didn't like the.
You know,
Wasn't
this
this going to take the
How would I
place
put
of the
this?
Scottish Rite Center?
The
that
roughness
was
of
kind of
the
my
character,
understanding at
all
the
this,
time,
and they
but then
kept
But-
him on through the
for
whole
whatever
movie.
reason they never
He
gave
did 3 close-ups
they
in
never
the
called
movie.
Well, I
us
remember
back.
Tim saying that
And
he had
everything
tried
else,
to contact
yeah,
them and
that
that
was
he
me.
had gotten no
I made a
response.
lot of money because of that fact.
So my feeling
The
always
guy that I
was,
worked for,
I thought the
the
event
stunt coordinator,
overall
paid me
was
an
a
acting
success,
contract,
you know,
and I
successfully
doubled
run,
myself, so I had a stunt
and there were
contract.
no incidents or
And you
anything
combine
like
the two
that. So
together,
why in the world
and you
would it
add
be?
stunt adjustments and drive to and
You know,
no
I
penalties, 'cause we
I
never
didn't
got fed
understand
on
why
time.
they
We
were
busy
kind of closed
all day
off
long.
to his
And you're working 14
approaches.
hours, 16 hours a
It's the event, the venue, is really hard to get a hold of and really hard to sit down and work through some stuff. At the last company that I worked at, they actually had their annual trade show there, and to just get them to be locked in on a date a year later was really hard working with them. Getting access in there was really tough. I just think that they do so many events and they have so many different event spaces on that property that
Yeah.
they were just having a really hard time with the pandemic coming, the world opening back up and being able to manage all of that. And I just don't think that they've gotten it all situated and squared away to where they can just lock in. And the Scottish Rite Center, even though we've probably outgrown it as Sinister, is still just such a great venue because it's so small and intimate. And that's a lot of the feedback that we get from the guests, is that they love how small and intimate it is.
Right. Right.
So I don't see any rush to change that when that's the feedback that you're getting.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing, for us too, as a team, Scottish Rite Center, we all know it like the back of our hand.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you say, through the courtyard and to the right, it's not like, you don't even have to think about it. It's like muscle memory. So
Right. Right.
everybody knows where everybody is. Like when we get the blueprint of the room and we see, tentatively where all the guests are going to be. When I get that and I send it to you guys, like, I don't know about you guys, but already in my mind, I already see how we're going to execute throughout the day based on where people are. Just because we've been in that venue for so long.
Right.
Yeah, like I could walk that venue sleepwalking and make it out and anywhere that I need to go just fine.
Yeah.
Similar from like a stunt perspective, like it was originally a doubling thing, and I was like, oh cool, I was stoked about it.
The thing that's cool about Sinister too is we have our own little entrance.
Emissaries, which didn't end up making
Or about Scottish Rite, I should say.
That's true. That's true. And that does make it nice too.
The Fugitive title didn't even happen until after the movie.
How do you guys feel about doing a panel like this, which is really a panel because you have, 3 different celebrities and you're interviewing 3 different people as opposed to a one-on-one interview? Which do you think is the easier to do?
For me, the one-on-one seem a little bit easier. I just feel like I can captivate the attention of one person better. I mean, I'm still learning and growing. I think that my experience when I've done, like a women's panel or I've done an artist panel and you have 4 to 7 people, 4 to 8 people on your panel.
Right.
It's really hard to manage that time because you don't know if they're all going to be long-winded, if some are long-winded, some are one-liners. So you have to really think about your questions and how you're going to pivot so that it doesn't drag on and go beyond your time. Also, you want to keep them engaged, but you don't want to feel it like anyone's singled out. And sometimes you get a panel where you have one person who's more popular than the other people, and they have more credits and they've done more, and you have more to talk about. And some of the other guests may not have that much or be that out there, and it's hard to appease the guests that are watching the panels by touching on everybody and getting in those questions and things that they want to know without leaving it open-ended at the end of the thing for all these questions for just one person. You kind of want to get that good, that you want to put all the vegetables in the stew together and get them at to settle at the right time and release their flavors so that they come out right and it's a good pot, you know? And sometimes I feel like it's a little bit harder to finesse that in the larger groups, for me at least.
I think you're right about that. I think that with 3 people, you're dealing with 3 different personalities. There may be one person that's really long-winded, so they're going to give these long answers, and that kind of cuts into the time. So I think you have to work harder to kind of manage how the panel's going, which direction it's going, and move. Either you have to move things along a little faster, which means you may have to maybe cut somebody short a little bit to give somebody else an opportunity to answer you. So it is a little trickier. I think you're right about that.
I do think
there's definitely a finesse to it. Like, you don't want to upset the guest, and you want to touch on everything, but you also don't want to upset the guests that are watching the panel. You know what I mean? Like,
also, you have to look for the things that they have in common, because you want to ask some general questions that everybody is going to be able to respond to. And you've got, like in this particular panel, you've got 3 very different franchises that these people are involved in. So you have to look at the totality of who you're interviewing and try to find some common ground there.
You know, this is one of those things too where
can I take the head off, please?
it was a
like,
matter of
can I take the head off,
circumstance as far as it being one day.
The head off, and so they took it off, and
Like, I honestly, if we were in this at this Sinister for 2 days, I don't know if it would have been 3 one-on-one panels, or if it would have been a combination of maybe 1 spotlight panel and 2 of those guys. I don't think it would have been this. But the fact that we were only there for 1 day, and we only had on this day 5 panels. Like, it was not a long day in the sense of, like what Sinister is now on Saturday when we're there, 12 to 7, we're, doing programming. So this was a unique situation to have these 3 on the stage at the same time.
Yeah.
And with that, it's kind of like what you guys have already said is, every time I've gone into a panel with more than 3, Face Off back in the early Sinister days is a key one. The makeup artist panel that we usually close the event with every year is another good example. Is the double-edged, the silver lining of it is knowing, like, I only need 5 questions because I'm probably only going to get to ask 3 questions.
Right.
And they're going to, we're going to go down the line, question number 1, boom, 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 boom. Okay, that ate up a third of the panel. The bummer side of that, like you kind of had said, Charlie, when I asked you who you were more excited to see, I actually think I asked you who you wanted to sit by in this panel, and you were like, put me next to Don, Jim.
I probably did.
I went to play golf with Willie Nelson's golf course.
you don't get to ask, someone
lunch,
that,
so they always came
and it's not to discredit anybody else on the panel, but if you're there, in a group of 5 and there's one person that got lumped into that group of 5 that you were, almost optimistically hoping for that one-on-one conversation with, but now they're in a group of 5, you don't get to ask them every question that you wanted to.
Yeah.
But then it's like, what are we really talking about? Like, you're sitting up there on stage with all these great people. Like you said, Charlie, 10 years ago, never in my wildest would I have thought we'd be doing this. So it's like,
it's a pleasant surprise at this point in my life that I was able to, and all credit to you, Jim. I've thought about this often, and I thought, if I don't even know that I would be writing stories if it wasn't for you, because you kind of sparked that creative.
Aww, a mushy moment.
So it's where like the teacher becomes the student, becomes, it's like this cycle, which is really cool. And
you're always going to be my teacher, Charlie. So.
I appreciate that, Jim. That means a lot to me. But it's just these experiences, they're just precious, I mean, I've got this scrapbook at home. Bev keeps this scrapbook of all the conventions we've been to and all the interactions and all that stuff, and it's incredible to sit down and look at. So
I think the other really incredible thing about being a moderator, especially at Sinister, is that our group is already so close-knit outside of Sinister because we podcast on a regular basis. We go to movies so that we have podcasts and stuff like that. But we really are a family. Like, if something's going on, we're always there for each other. But we grow as a family, too. We all have different experiences at every convention, and we always talk about it after we have a round robin. We bring it up. It helps us all grow. Watching you do panels, Charlie, watching Jimmy do panels, watching Jaye do panels, gives me insight on things that I can do and change and angles that I can, and, tips and tricks and stuff like that. It's all a growing thing for us, and we have come so far from, like me, escorting guests to and from the panel room to now being a moderator and moderating. The growth is just amazing between all of us, and our team is just so strong. And I think that's why we're so good at what we do as a team. That Jimmy tells us, we're probably one of the best out there. It's because it's not just us coming together to do this event. We're doing this stuff together all the time, and we get to share these special moments. I look forward to moderating, but more than anything, I look forward to spending the weekend with you guys and having experiences and the laughs and the memories that we make, because we talk about them forever. And we all have special moments that we get to witness, Charlie, you got to witness my moment with Billy Zane and that whole panel, and I was literally coming undone before that panel. Like, I was freaking out. And it worked out, and it ended up being really great. We've seen.
I remember telling you afterwards, that's the best panel you've ever done.
It was the first thing you said to me. You came up and you said, "Congratulations, Ashlei, that's the best panel you've ever done."
That's right.
And it's just amazing to get to see those moments for us. To get to see Jimmy, interview his icons, and he. Like Bill Moseley, where I had to grab him and be like, "Hey, come back to reality. Like, this is happening right now. You're doing this. This is your moment." Charlie, you always just have this calm, and you always are just so well put together, and it's like the leaves never fall from your tree. You're never shaking enough for the leaves to fall from the tree, and it's so cool because you're just so put together, and then you have Jimmy who falls apart. I fall apart. Jaye gets super excited. That's how he, goes about it. So it's just a really cool way to see us grow in all of this.
I think we all complement each other in one way or another. You know, we all serve a purpose within the group. But, you know, it's interesting that we were talking about other conventions and other people that lead panels and other moderators. And once in a while, I will look back. If I'm doing some prep, I'll go back and I'll look at somebody else that's interviewed, whoever it is that we're scheduled to interview. And I really can say that I think we do as well, if not better, than the guys that do the Monster Palooza and you know, these big high-profile conventions. As far as our moderation goes and being able to handle interviews with celebrities and being able to manage panels, I think we're right at the top. I really do. I think, you know, that we,
but not for real.
you know, we don't give away anything to those guys that are much more experienced than we are. So.
I think to go off of that, Charlie, we went with Jimmy a few years back. We went to Silicon Valley Comic-Con and we went and saw the Weasley twins from Harry Potter. We went and saw Stone Cold's panel. And those panel rooms were massive. We were literally sitting on the floor in front of the stage because they were so packed.
Yeah.
But to see the way that those panels were ran and the way that we run our panel, it was so formal. Like, you know, so just like, this is the question, this is the answer, this is the question, this is the answer. There was not a lot of like freedom. I think the other thing that makes us really different is we have a lot of fun. Right. If there's something we want to say or we want to laugh about something or we want to call something out, we do it. It's just kind of our nature. We're just kind of homebodies like that. Like whatever we're going to say to each other, we kind of say to our guests and we have that conversation with them. I think it's great for maybe those bigger conventions because they have so many people that are packing in, but to just kind of, it feels stiff when you go to those. Like Jimmy was saying, you know, Comic-Con, things like that. There was so many unanswered questions and things that they didn't touch on, especially with Stone Cold. He has so much going on and so much wrestling history and all these things. And I just felt like we kept circling back to his beer and circling back to the ranch. And we weren't really like getting to the nitty gritty of this person and what made them and built them. And I think it's really great that we have the opportunity to have the freedom and stuff to do that. And we haven't really had like a celebrity writer come in and say, hey, this is what you can talk about. This is what they're not going to talk about. This is this. And then it's like, well, we don't have anything to talk about because everything that these fans are interested in is what we can't talk about. Like we've been really lucky with that as well.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of those things too, where I wonder when it gets to that level of attendance or what, you know, whatever the factor may be, I would be willing to bet you whoever is assigning those moderators to those panels, like the moderator doesn't really get a whole lot of input of what they are doing on that weekend. Like I would be willing to bet you like the head guy is, you know, like, okay, you're doing Stone Cold, you're doing the Weasleys, even if the Weasley moderator is a huge wrestling fan and the Stone Cold moderator may be a, you know, diehard Harry Potter fan. That's one thing that I always try to do for you guys is when we have our final schedule, and it's really kind of a two-step process, is when we have our guest announcements. In my head, I'm already, you know, thinking, okay, Charlie's going to interview this person, Ashley's going to interview this person, Jay's going to interview this person, I want to interview this person. And then when, you know, Tim finally sets the schedule in stone and I send it to you guys, then it becomes, it's almost like a draft. Like, what's your first choice? What's your second choice? What's your third choice? And, I try to keep it as even as possible. There's always going to be those circumstances where someone is requesting someone moderate, or maybe there's an outside moderator that's coming in as a special guest. That always is going to happen, and that's fine. But for the most part, our foursome is very good at trying to make it so everybody gets to interview who they want to interview.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the other thing is we're all very supportive of each other of the panels that we're getting. Like, hey, how are you feeling today? Hey, do you need to go up and meet that person? I mean, there's been plenty of times where Jimmy's grabbed me and gone, hey, let's go up to the table and let's go meet Rachel True and get you introduced before your panel. Let's go have 5 minutes. Hey, let's go do this. Hey, Jay's really good about reaching out to me and going, hey, where are you at with your questions? Do you need help? Let's go over this. Let's talk about it. Did you know this about this person? And we all kind of are really good about interacting with that and doing that. Something else that I know from those bigger conventions, from another friend that does some moderating, is that half the time they have to submit their questions and send them to the guests before the panel.
Oh, wow.
And we have the luxury of just blindly going in and having a conversation with them. And I think that also changes the tone of how the panels go as well.
And I think we let our personalities, we all have distinct personalities, and we let those personalities come through. They don't get in the way of the interview, but I think it adds that personal quality to the interviews too, where it's not so formal. It's more of a conversation. And as far as meeting the celebrities ahead of time, when we've done that, the celebrities almost always need some reassurance that they want to know who's interviewing them. They were, some of them are very uneasy about that. It's surprising how these people that spend their lives in front of a camera, sometimes when it's a live event like this, they're actually nervous and have a little bit of stage fright. So it's really a good thing to go and kind of make them feel comfortable.
Charlie just told Xander to sit down and shut up. I knew it was this panel.
Well, I got to explain that. I said this is the last question. Of course, Xander's not listening, so he raises his hand when I'm getting ready to sign off to everybody. And Don Shanks actually said, "Hey, this."
Yeah,
we
got one more.
Yeah, and Charlie's like, "No, we don't need that question."
Believe
That's not
me,
a question. That's just my grandson.
Down. That comes up all the time. So that is going to haunt me for the rest of my life.
Well, if you want to find out what crazy Charlie and Xander incident happens in 2024, go to sinistercreaturecon.com right now and buy your tickets for what will be an awesome event. Coming up, our next episode, you talked about Ashlei's panel being the best she's ever done with Billy Zane. Coming up on our next episode is a panel that Ashlei did that I had my proud big brother moment. And we'll talk more about that on the next one. So for Ashlei from Higby Horant and Charlie and even Xander, who's already raising, well, I was going to say who's already raising his hand, I'm sure, getting ready for 2024. We will be back.
And Jaye.
And Jaye as well. SinisterCreatureCon.com. Get your tickets right now. You can find this panel uninterrupted in the show notes where you can watch the whole thing and then go back and watch this side by side with it and get our insights on how it went. We will be back. Stay spooky, everybody.
Jim.